Hi, welcome to part two of the climate change narrative. And why am I sharing this information with you? Do I believe that we can stop people like Dr. David Keith or the gentleman we're going to listen to from NASA? No. I care about individuals, and there are proactive steps you can take if you have the knowledge of what's going on. I'll share some of those with you at the end, but I want you to have the knowledge, the chance to decide for yourself, and some actual names of people that you can research. Let's listen to Dr. David Keith.
The little picture is from a nanofabrication study, which shows you can make very high quality, and do this in just a jet in a very simple way, make high quality alumina particles just by spraying aluminum vapor out, which oxidizes. So it's certainly in principle possible to do that. There's a big literature that's already looked at that. And you could do that by either building new versions of these aircraft or even re-engineering existing aircraft. So there's some ideas of that. So you go to an engineering firm and you want this done. They don't say this is hard or unusual. They say, okay, yes, we could do it. Aerosol geoengineering looks like it is so cheap that the cost is basically not going to be an issue. That means that implementation decisions will be risk-to-risk decisions. The risk of doing it against the risk of not doing it. And it makes the problem of how we govern it fundamentally harder and different and novel. So I've told you that it's cheap to deliver materials to the stratosphere, and I'm convinced that's true. I don't think that will change. But I think the more we do research, the less easy this will look, the more complicated the environmental effects will look, and that's a good thing, because right now it looks too easy. So I think that if we do more research, we're likely to find out that it's harder and more complicated than we thought, and that the side effects are harder to manage, and that's a healthy outcome that will make it easier to do the management. Of course, the opposite reaction is possible. It's an empirical question how people will actually react to knowledge about this. Another reaction is to say, if these crazy scientists are so concerned about putting CO2 in the atmosphere, they want to think about these things, and that might actually mean we should be more serious about the risks of CO2 in the atmosphere. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids.
Numerous air quality studies, including from CARB, California Air Quality Resource Board, have named submicron-sized particulates as being particularly harmful for human respiration. Through all the discussions today, I have not heard any mention of this fallout, and has this been studied, and also the effects of a highly reactive metal like aluminum on toxifying soils and waters?
The question is, what would be the effects of these materials on human health if they came down into the stratosphere, in particular small particles and aluminum?
So the collaborators of mine working on the aerosol scheme are actually folks from Carnegie Mellon who focused on human health impacts. And while we haven't published it, that was the very first thing we did, was do the order of magnitude calculation in level pencil and paper, but with an expert on human health impacts about whether there could be an issue. And for aluminum or other particles, there are a lot of toxicological things that need to get looked at seriously. But if you're just thinking about the sheer number of particles and the human health impact of small particles, the answer is, well, we haven't published it. That was the first thing we looked at with some of the leading experts who do epidemiological research on human health impacts, and it's not even close to being an issue.
To clarify, so 10 megatons of aluminum dumped into the atmosphere would have no human health impact.
So let me be more careful here. We're to separate out the toxicological. So the alumina, we've only begun to research and published nothing. Alumina, we've only begun to research and published nothing.
Dane looked at him and he said, so you're telling me that spraying 10 to 20 megatons of aluminum, as you said, would have no human health effects? He took a deep breath and he swallowed and he said, let me be more careful here.
We haven't done anything serious on alumina, and so there could be something terrible that we'll find tomorrow we haven't looked at.
And that, for me, that was the whole main point of what is going to be coming out to the public. It's the damaging effects of aluminum that are being found around the world in massive amounts. Here's David Keith confronted on this very issue, and he looked, at that point like they just let the cat out of the bag.
Mm-hmm. We haven't done anything serious on alumina, and so there could be something terrible that we'll find tomorrow we haven't looked at.
So I think the question is, how do you draw the line between some activity that is allowed and doesn't need global governance and activities that do require global governance?
You are about to meet Doug Rawl, a heliophysicist from NASA. He's going to explain how lithium is used in chemtrails. Look up the Space Preservation Act of 2001. Enjoy.
Dedicated to science and research and so on. So we're very keen to make sure that taxpayers know what we're doing and everything. So
well, when the article came out in the major newspapers, including the Huffington Post, there was no mention of lithium. Not one mention of lithium until I heard the recording of the actual. I listened to it. I listened to the rockets go off. I had no idea there was going to be a lithium dispersed until I heard payload lithium dispersed.
Right. There was lithium dispersed, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. I think you might be under some misconceptions about what we're doing. I'm happy to tell you any details that you need.
Well, I know that it says in your article that you're doing it for communications.
Okay, happy to talk to you. There are many reasons we're doing it.
Okay.
We don't understand how the wind in the upper atmosphere moves.
Mm-hmm.
In these chemtrails, there's different kinds of chemtrails, as you probably know. Different trails at night we use, and different trails during the day. The wind blows them around. They glow either from scattered sunlight. We take pictures, and we can see how the wind trail moves around. It's just like a picture of an airplane contrail. You can use that to see how the wind was blowing under those altitudes. This is much higher altitude, so we use these chemical trails.
And what is the purpose of knowing what the wind's going to do in the ionosphere?
Its purpose is the ionosphere is really to understand our planet. It's very fundamental science. We're trying to understand every day. We know there's electric currents that flow over the head. They're just naturally there. They've been there for ever since the Earth had an atmosphere and a magnetic field. And the wind is driven by the sun. The sun heats the atmosphere. And every day that wind drives an electric current. And we're trying to understand what causes that. Essentially, how does it work in detail? And so importantly, when the sun becomes active with lots of sunspots and lots of magnetic activity, that changes the wind pattern and changes electric currents. So we want to understand both what it is on a regular day when there's no solar activity, and then what it is when there's a lot of solar activity.
Is there some other kind of a way that you can use it without dispersing the lithium?
We're researching other ways. The lithium is actually harmless to the environment, and we could show you more about that. But it is tricky to use because it's very faint. You can't see it with your naked eye. You have to, have special cameras to see it and so on. So we don't like to use it for that reason. It's hard. In other words, it's hard measurements to make. Researching other ways to put sensors directly on the rocket to measure the wind, and those are ongoing. We're trying to develop those now. In fact, one of the purposes of this mission was to do that.
Well, you've explained it to me then. I don't agree with it, but I appreciate you explaining it to me.
Email too if you have detailed questions, anything you want.
Okay, I will. I'm gonna research it a little more, and I will email you. And I appreciate you taking the time out to speak to me today, sir.
Your call. It's not often we get to hear from members of the public and people who are really interested and concerned with what we're doing. And I really appreciate your time.
I wish more people would call. I really do. I've called my senators. I've called my governor. You can't get through to anyone, sir. You can't get through to anybody.
Yeah.
I go to my city council. I live in Rowl, North Carolina. They don't care. They laugh you out of there. There's no other recourse for us, sir, unless to talk to people directly and find out what is going on, because we're paying for it.
Well, I don't know how far you are from the flight facility. Is that easy? Is that feasible from where you are?
Where is it, sir? I don't know where it is.
It's north of Norfolk, Virginia. It's on the eastern Virginia. If you're at Norfolk, it would probably take you another 2.5 hours to get there. If you're in North Carolina, I don't know where you are, but maybe.
Right. Yeah, I'm in western rural North Carolina near the Tennessee border.
Have a chance. You might consider either going to Goddard Space Flight Facility, which is outside of D.C. There is Clemson University, which is where all the the chemical release work is done.
Oh, really? Well, that's very close to me.
Might contact those guys.
That is
They'd be
interesting.
happy to explain what they're doing.
Oh.
As promised, here are a few actual practical solutions that you can add to your preparedness kit. The first is a grab and go binder because it's the one you'll want to grab on your way out the door in an emergency. If the worst happens, you wake up to the smell of smoke or the call comes telling you to evacuate now, this will be the thing you grab after your kids and pets. Your binder holds hard copies of all the details of life that help you navigate the electronic and bureaucratic world we live in. If nothing terrible ever happens, if your life flows without a single serious event, you will still be grateful to have your paperwork organized and at your fingertips. That is number 1. Practical tip number 2, alternative lighting. If the power goes out now, as it often does here, we are severely restricted in our activities unless we have some alternative light. So, practical tip number 2, assess your lighting needs. Number 3, on the list of things that disappear from store shelves when a storm is on the horizon, water, water, water. Water, water everywhere and not a drop to drink. Water is nearly always at the top. Have you ever seen videos of a supermarket on the day before a major storm? Carts are full of bottled water and shelves are bare. People who wait do without. Number 4, build a first aid kit. Dealing with a crisis can be hard on your body. Sleep is often disrupted and a large number of people may be packed into tight quarters. Meals could be erratic and not what you're used to. It might be hard to stay clean as you would like. Stress alone is enough to compromise your immune system. All of this adds up to the possibility of illness complicating an already challenging situation. Catching a bug or developing an infection will not be the only thing to worry about. If you have debris to clean up, snow or ice to remove, or home repairs to make, injuries are a real possibility, even if none were sustained during the actual event. Get some first aid. And the final tip for today is to keep in mind Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will, and it will do so at the most inconvenient time. Having a well-equipped toolkit allows you to make simple repairs yourself at a time when a quick fix can save you big headaches down the road. Thanks for joining me. I hope you got something out of it. Please come join us at Chasing the Light community on Locals. I wish you the best of luck.